Welcome to the Quotive Corner. Today's quote is one of those lines that sounds almost too simple, like something you'd see on a coffee mug and scroll past. I want to make the case that it deserves more than that, because underneath its clean surface is a precise diagnosis of one of the most common ways people stop themselves before they ever begin. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. That's Zig Ziglar, one of the most recognized names in motivational speaking and sales training, a best-selling author of over 30 books, and a figure who spent decades distilling principles of success and character into language that ordinary people could actually use. This line circulates consistently under his name across multiple independent sources, and fellow motivational speaker Brian Tracy specifically credited it as Ziglar's. Now, the structure of this quote is worth noticing before we get into what it means, because it's doing something technically interesting. It's a chiasm, a rhetorical device where the second half of a sentence mirrors and inverts the first. Great to start to be great. The words reverse, and in reversing, they create a kind of logical trap that's almost impossible to escape once you see it. You can't get to great without starting, and starting doesn't require great. The only thing standing between you and the beginning is the false belief that the beginning requires something you don't yet have. That false belief is extraordinarily common, and it shows up in a specific form that most people recognize immediately when they hear it named: the conviction that you need to be ready before you begin, that you need more preparation, more knowledge, more skill, more confidence, more certainty about the outcome before it makes sense to actually start, that the beginning should wait until the conditions are right, until you're good enough, until you know enough, until the timing is better, until the risk is lower, until the version of yourself you'd like to be has somehow arrived in advance of the work required to build them. What Ziglar's quote cuts through cleanly and without sentimentality is the waiting itself. You do not start because you are great. You become great because you started. The causality runs in one direction only, and it starts with action rather than readiness. Readiness, in the sense most people mean it, the feeling of being fully prepared, is almost never the precondition for beginning something worthwhile. It is, more often, a product of having begun. Think about how this plays out in practice. The person who wants to write waits until they have something important enough to say. The person who wants to start a business waits until the plan is sufficiently complete. The person who wants to get in shape waits until they have the right equipment, the right schedule, the right motivation. The person who wants to have a difficult conversation waits until the moment feels right. In every case, the waiting feels responsible, like prudent preparation rather than avoidance. But the waiting has a cost that accumulates invisibly because the skill, the confidence, and the clarity that would make starting feel more justified only arrive through the act of starting itself. The information you need is on the other side of the attempt. In a previous episode, we discussed how Kierkegaard made this point from a philosophical angle, that if you judge yourself according to the outcome before you begin, you will never begin at all. Ziglar is making the practical version of the same argument. The outcome you're afraid of not achieving is not available before you start. Neither is the greatness you're afraid of not having. Both of them, if they come through the doing, not before it. Anne Mulligan Smith told us in a prior episode that done is better than perfect. That's the anti-perfectionism argument. Ziglar's quote is the anti-waiting argument. They're related but distinct. Smith is addressing the person who starts but won't finish because nothing is ever good enough. Ziglar is addressing the person who never starts because nothing feels ready enough. Same fear, different expression, same solution. Move. There is also something worth naming about what starting actually does beyond just beginning the task. Starting changes how you see yourself. The person who has started a thing, even badly, even imperfectly, even with full awareness that they're not yet good at it, is in a fundamentally different psychological position than the person who is still planning to start. They have evidence. They have something real to build on. They have the particular kind of confidence that can only come from having done something rather than having thought about doing it. That confidence doesn't arrive before the start. It is a product of the start. Sam Levinson's clock that we previously discussed keeps moving not because it's ready, but because moving is what it does. Ziglar is making the same argument about human potential. Greatness is not a state you arrive in and then begin from. It's a direction you move in, and the moving is what produces it. Let's consider the honest counterpoint, because this show always addresses it. Starting without any preparation can produce avoidable failure. There is a real difference between the paralysis of endless preparation and the wisdom of adequate preparation. The surgeon who hasn't completed their training shouldn't start operating. The entrepreneur who hasn't done basic market validation shouldn't assume enthusiasm is sufficient. The musician who hasn't learned the fundamentals shouldn't blame a lack of starting for their absence of skill. Some waiting is not avoidance. It's genuine, necessary groundwork. The quote is most useful as a corrective for the specific and very common failure mode of waiting past the point where waiting is genuinely productive. Most people know, honestly, when they have crossed that line, when the preparation has become an excuse rather than a prerequisite. Ziglar isn't telling you to skip necessary work. He's telling you that at some point, the most productive thing you can do is begin producing. And that point comes earlier than most people's instincts tell them it does. You don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start. And the starting, done honestly and with genuine effort, is where great actually comes from. Thanks for spending a few minutes here at the Quotive Corner. If this one brought to mind something you've been waiting to begin, and you know the waiting has gone on longer than it needed to, that's worth some honest consideration. And consider this. Wisdom isn't in the quote. It's in the reflection. I'll see you in the next one.